As is pretty standard with me, I'm late to the party on this one. Um, but there's something that really didn't sit right with me about Thunderfoot, at least for the last month. And I'm gonna try and not make this as bandwagony as possible. And part of the beauty of coming late to the party is that if people have made criticisms that I agree with, I can just say, well, I agreed, and get on to what I'm saying, so that at least when you see my video, it's a little bit different. Um, but there are a few things like his e-bagging, which I don't give a shit. I kind of care more that he's being coercive about it, but let's just say we've seen this kind of stuff on YouTube before, and if subscribers want to give these people their money on coercive grounds, then that's perfectly fine and reasonable. I, I kind of prefer it when if people are going to beg, they're at least upfront and honest, like when the Amazing Atheist made a video saying that he wanted donations so he could take his girlfriend to dinner. I thought that that was that was like a fair enough thing. Someone being absolutely upfront. But I don't care. I'm rambly. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get another cigarette. Um, there's like him quoting the Bible, um, in his large tirade against the Bible, um, and Captain anti-dogmatic thinking, basically saying, "Stop bitching about me." Um, all this stuff has been pointed out before, but it's actually his idea about uh, biblical uh, biblical scholarship. And I was originally going to make a video to Prof MTH as to why even I would be hesitant to give the Westboro Baptist Church the label of Christian. And it's because I'm not at all convinced that they understand the Bible. People can say they're being literal and accurate and they're applying it, but at the end of the day, we're not dealing with a book, we're dealing with a collection. We're dealing with uh, we're essentially dealing with a library, and I would find anyone that says that they know enough about the Bible as comical, as someone who you take into a library and they say, well, I read all these books and I know everything here, from the sci-fi section to the history section, even if, you know, like I think cumulatively at a library I've cleared at my local public library, I think I've cleared maybe about 2 shelves, and there's about 3 stories to the Vancouver Public Library. So yeah, that's kind of what I think is a little bit ridiculous. Now, what biblical what theological study will actually do, um, believer or non-believer, it really doesn't fucking matter. Hell, I'm not a Christian and I advocate for it. What it'll do is it'll give you a greater understanding of the climate surrounding when the book was written, um, where a lot of homophobic Christians quote Romans 1. This actually allows me to make a contextual argument against them. In fact, my midterm when I was studying theology actually involved that. Actually involved homosexuality in the Bible, and how the Bible really, as far as the New Testament goes, doesn't condemn it. And I maintain it doesn't condemn it, and maybe I should do a video on that later. Um, but it allows a greater understanding. It allows you to be better equipped to deal with questions and problems, be you a believer or not. And Todd, it's the Superfly, touched on how theological study can create a crisis of faith, which is absolutely true, and I would attribute that to the anachronistic reading of it. And the foundation of a lot of these people's faiths are based on sheer anachronism when approaching the Bible. Here's the crux, though, that really kind of sets me off about what Thunderfoot's up to. This idea that somehow the ends justify the means, which is an incredibly corrosive philosophy, an incredibly morally corrosive philosophy. When you say, well, the end that I seek is the end of dogmatic thinking and higher education and all that, you're listing very noble goals. You're listing things like the proliferation of scientific literature and understanding, which I strongly advocate for. But the means of how you get there is actually incredibly important. And before I would go around saying something like that, and actually I'm working on a video right now that I've kind of alluded to in other videos that I made, kind of referenced that I'm working on this, and yeah, it's the one that that Landon has a cameo in. It's a brilliant cameo, and I want to take another opportunity to thank Landon for this. But there's a moment in that script where I actually say, I don't care how we get there. I just care that that we get there before before any more of our youth get devoured. And what I'm actually talking about there is the LGBT suicide rate, to kind of hint at that. And that's something that I think if you're going to say something like that, you really have to think about it. And I spend the vast majority of my video being very careful as to the means that I anticipate, the means that could be a reaction, and why I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing. I approach it very, very carefully. I approach it very I approach it very carefully because otherwise you can run into this trap. I refer to it as the lawful good Hitler trap. And people who are familiar with tabletop role-playing games will immediately get this analogy because, well, as far as Hitler was concerned, he thought he was doing the right thing, which would, in terms of D&D alignment, make him a good alignment. But in turn, he did evil acts, and I know people are going to call Godwin's law, but it's the easiest analogy for this, to demonstrate that no matter how noble the ends are, the ends will never justify the means. The means have to be justified on their own, and Thunderfoot absolutely fails at doing this. And whenever someone stands up and says, you're being an ass, you're aligning yourself with people like the BNP and the EDL, you're creating an atmosphere of greater hatred and xenophobia and dividing cultural lines even starker, like with the Jar Muhammad Day thing. His response is, well, the ends justify the means. And I just kind of realized that today. I actually realized that before I made the video to Terry. I kind of woke up, I had my tea, and I was thinking about that. But that's something that no one else has addressed, and that's why I'm making this video, because That's an incredibly corrosive philosophy to have. And it's the philosophy that Thunderfoot has demonstrated. And if I'm going to levy any unique criticism at him, it's going to be that. Because the ends never justify the means, and the means need their own individual justification. But I'll leave that in the air. I've rambled quite a bit. The video that I'm working on is going to kickstart something that I've had in mind for a while. And I guess that I'll leave it as a general message to several people that were calling me out earlier for this, and by earlier I mean long before half of you even subscribed to me, by saying, and this time I'm right, and I'm not gonna be fucking stopped. It's time to don the helmet once again, and I'll just leave it at that. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And if you do and you oppose me, then all I have to offer to you is, why don't you understand I'm doing what I must to make sure these atrocities never happen again to anyone? And I mean that. And I mean that universally. And that's why I oppose Thunderfoot on the Islam thing. And that's why I oppose Thunderfoot on his Christianity crusade. This is why I oppose Sam Harris. This is why I oppose Richard Dawkins. And you heard it here. Equal rights, motherfuckers. Equal rights.